Hi, after today's class, I realized that maybe a little more explanation was needed on when you can use VLOOKUP and when you should use match and index, and just a little bit more about the differences between these. So first of all, a VLOOKUP can only be used when whatever value you are looking for would be in the first column. It may not be found in the first column, but that's where you would normally look for it. So for example, in the problem we did this morning, we were looking for a player name. That means the player's name column had to be the first column in the range we were using. So this is best also when the order of the columns don't change. So for example, if our games played moved now to column 5 instead of 4, we would have to change our formula. So if they're changing all the time, there are other better options, actually using a match and an index. Actually match and index with 2 matches. But either way, for right now, we're going to stick with just being able to using the VLOOKUP and assuming the columns are not moving around. So the other thing is if you're using a true or an approximate match, such as when we did the tax information, you need to make sure that your data is sorted. Now with the match, basically all the match is doing is finding a location of a value in a row or column. We are looking in a column in our example here to find what row number to use to look at. For this one, we're going to use a 0 for an exact match. We can use a 1 for a closer value, which is lower, and a -1 for a closer value, which is higher than, but we're not going to use that in this class at this time. Now with the index, the reason we want to use these in conjunction is with any given range of data, which Excel calls a table array, if we have a row number and a column number, it will return the value in that cell. So that's why we need to use the two together. We're going to use the match to find the row number, and then we're going to hard code the column number to give that cell. So let's take a look at the problems we did this morning and just try to look at them a little bit further. It looks like I left the formulas there, so let's just go ahead and delete them. We're going to use the player Cabrera, and it looks like he's in row number 8 of our range, so starting with the data. So we'll keep that in mind for later. So the first question is asking to find the number of games for the player above. Well, games is off to the right, but player name is in column B. So what we're going to need to do is make sure we start our table array with column B. So then we'll have column 1, column 2, and column 3. So we can use a VLOOKUP because we can arrange our data. Now, one of the rules that I gave with this problem is you can't move your data around. So we couldn't move it around for for either one of the problems. And we aren't going to sort the data in a different manner because sometimes that does help. But in this case we can't, so we're not going to. So let's start with VLOOKUP. So the lookup value is the player that's in cell 05. We're going to look in the table array, starting with B2 and going down to J51. By the way, the shortcut key I used there, once I clicked in B2, I held down the Control-Shift key, hit the right arrow and the down arrow. That will automatically highlight a certain range. So I'm going to hit a comma, and we said before that the games played was column 3. The next thing it's asking for is a true for approximate match and a false for an exact match. I'm going to go ahead and put in false and use the right parenthesis. If you do not put anything, it assumes a true, which is not what we want. Alright, so I hit enter, and the number of games played for Cabrera is 156. Great, that matches. Now for the next one, we want to find a rank based on the player name. So we are not going to be able to use a VLOOKUP in this case, because if we select the range starting with column B, rank will fall outside of that. If we use a range as rank, we won't be able to, starting with rank, we won't be able to look up on the player name. So this is a perfect example of when you would use a match and an index. Now, to break it down, is rather than trying to type the whole thing at once, it is easiest to go ahead and start with typing a match. So I'm going to do equals match. Our lookup value is still the player name here in 05. We're going to use column B as the lookup array. So we're going to start with row 2. Now this is important when we add the index to remember that we started in row 2, and we'll explain that when we get there. I use the Control Shift down arrow to highlight that range. You can highlight with your mouse, that is perfectly fine. Comma, and the next thing is I want a less than, exact match, or greater than. I'm going to use an exact match and end with a comma, or parenthesis, I apologize. So Cabrera is in row number 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. So now we need to add an index around this. So keep in mind this match here is returning just the row number. That's helpful, but we need a little more information. So I'm going to start by adding the word index, adding the function index. It's asking for an array. Now it's important here that we start in row 2 because our match started in row 2. Otherwise, if we start in row 1, row number 8 would end up being with Bryant. So we're going to make sure we start in row 2. And we're going to add a comma. The next thing it's asking for is the row number, but we already know this match is returning the row number. So that we're going to leave that in place of the row number. We're going to add a comma at the end. And our column number that we want is actually this first column, so column A, which is column 1. And we're going to add a right parenthesis and press enter. And if we look for Cabrera, for number 42. Let's just check it with another name. I'm picking another player. He played 158 games, great, and the rank is 28. So it appears our formula is working. Well, I hope this helps with understanding how to do some VLOOKUPs and match indexes a little better. Of course, if you have questions, drop me a note. Have a great day.